Well, I would like to start by apologising to all of Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, because I seem to have brought the fog from Silent Hill out into the real world.
No. Is it like Persona 4? When the fog comes over to this side, are we all in danger?
Oh dear, this could be more serious than we think.
The Gaming Lovers Podcast with Brendo and Jem.
G'day and welcome to The Gaming Lovers episode 62.
Yes, welcome back one and all. I am Brendo.
I'm Jem.
And we are The Gaming Lovers, here again to talk something quite serious. Some legal issues.
Ooh.
That sounds ominous. Don't worry though, I played quite a bit of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney in my time. I know all about how to get around the legal finanglings that happen in the courtroom.
Objection. No, you don't.
No, you don't. How do certain laws affect video game availability? It sounds a bit boring. It sounds a bit complex.
But it is important.
It's important, and it will very much affect you, particularly if you've saved your credit card details to your Xbox 360. And little Jimmy can just buy extremely overpriced games.
That little Jimmy is such a problem maker.
He's such a pest.
From licensing to the age of digital games, there are a lot of reasons that games are kind of just disappearing from stores and from people's personal libraries. You think you own a game and then poof, gone forever. So we're going to be touching on that in this episode of the Gaming Lovers podcast. But before we get there, it's Gaming Goals. What did you play?
Well, that's the big question. What have you played this week? Your original gaming goal plan was to try a bit more of the Fallout 76 free trial, but life, I believe, got in the way. And then by the time you had free time again, the free trial was over.
Yeah. That did not go according to plan, so I've been locked out. They want me to pay for it. I'm like, psh, not yet. Maybe once the NPCs get added, I'll reconsider that. But couldn't jump back in and test my skills in the wastelands. I did get to level 5 and got to the point where I could have been potentially killed by other players, so that advanced the threat level. But I will never know beyond that. But that's okay. So
I'm curious to know whether the pre-owned price for this game will actually inflate a bit after this new
DLC
content is added to the game, and there might be a bit more demand for those who bought it originally, traded it in, and then now you can pick up a copy for $9 on PS4 secondhand at our local EB Games.
Possibly.
And sometimes games do go back up in price when they become more valuable again. So I'm curious. I will be watching that one.
What about you?
Hang on. What have you actually played then? You can't just say, oh, well, I was going to play a game and I didn't.
We could do one game here, one game there. It doesn't have to be all one person for, ages.
But it's the way things are done.
Why?
Or because I have a tendency to just ramble on for like 30 minutes about the games I've been playing.
Well, how about we intersplice my little anecdotes in between your monologues?
Okay, that sounds good.
All right, your first game, what have you been playing?
Well, primarily this week has all been about Red Dead Redemption 2, a game that I am feeling my family around me when I go back to camp. I explained this in an earlier podcast that the characters there, I walk through the camp to even just walk straight to the bed and have a sleep. And sometimes you don't want to talk to your family. You just want to get in the door, go to your bed and go to sleep. Now, invariably, you can't get from A to B inside your camp without being flagged down by somebody, yes. Whether it be the local drunk who just wants to really get in your face and just ramble about pointless things, or whether it's somebody who needs your help with a mission, or whether it's just somebody who's complaining about someone else. You know how gossip works. News gets around these sort of camps. But I found myself the other night after work just wanting to unwind. I didn't have a game plan, so I just put on Red Dead Redemption 2 and I sat down and played poker for 45 minutes with Uncle, Bill and Lenny with the incredible high stakes of $1 each buying in. So,
Well, when you only earn a couple of cents per job, that's a lot of money.
well, since then we have done some more serious heists and I'm rolling in the 4 figures quite comfortably. I'm the high roller of the area. I have $1,000. But yeah, even the low stakes poker game, I had such a good time with. There was no benefit for me winning. I'd get $3 out of it, but I sat and played the entire hand. I didn't skip any of the card dealing or anything. There was banter going back and forth around the table. It was just fun. It was like hanging out with some friends playing $1 poker.
It's kind of fun how big games like that will include lots of mini games to relax in, so that way when you feel overwhelmed with all of the story mode or the fetch quests and things like that are in those games, you've got something small to kind of break it up a little bit.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed the little mini games in Rockstar games back from the Grand Theft Auto 3 days. I find them fun. What little games can we put inside our big game? And playing poker was great. Dominoes, the rules confuse me sometimes because you got to end with the number of dots exposed on the outside at a even 5 or a 10, and then you get points for it, and it changes depending on who you're playing with, and it's all weird. Sorry, Tilly, won't be playing dominoes with you again because you absolutely fleeced me.
Wait, when I play dominoes, I just think of like stacking them in a line so that you can push them over. I'm guessing that's not what the actual original game is.
Actually domino games you can play. You've played Mexican Train.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
with dominoes.
I suppose that's true. That's lots of fun.
Usually I just thought dominoes you just had to clear out your hand and then you won. And in some games you do, but then there's other ones where you have to score certain amounts by having the dominoes configured on the board a certain way. And it's very confusing, and I can play a complex game like poker, can't play dominoes. What does that say about me? Now, my favourite part of the main plot so far, this is going to be relatively spoiler-free for Red Dead Redemption 2, but I've made it to the south, and we have 2 great warring families going at each other's throats. The 2 rich plantation families of Lemoyne, which is the area we're in. Stop me if you've heard this before. You've got these 2 families. They've hated each other for generations. Nobody can really remember why, but there may be some infatuation between young members of each group. And, forbidden love.
Romeo and Juliet.
There you go. It's all happening again in the Wild West. And, of course, our little gang of bandits Leaded. I'm not a smart bandit. There is an older gentleman in your crew called Hosea, who's basically the con artist of the group, and we're going to try to work this situation to our financial advantage by pretending to be hired guns for both families.
Oh.
I don't see how this could go badly.
You end up going to just work for the kids instead and help them run away with all the money you've swindled?
Well, it is kind of funny because Arthur Morgan you play as, he's a rough, tough son of a gun in the Wild West. And as you go through this story, you progressively get swept up in that little young adult romance happening. And you become basically the letter delivery man between the 2. The problem is, after returning from the Braithwaite estate, which sounded more complex to say.
Is the boy's name Daryl?
No. That's the girl is the Braithwaite.
Oh, they could sing songs about the horses.
His name is Beau Grey. And all I was doing was returning back to the Grey estate after delivering a letter successfully, sneaking around Metal Gear Solid style in the tobacco fields of the Braithwaite Manor. And there was a Braithwaite trying to run away from the Grey estate. And the Grey guys were shooting at the Braithwaite that was running up the hill.
Well,
and
that's the way it's going to be, little darling.
It's funny you say that because the Greys actually have good horses. So they will be riding on the horses in this very story.
Yeah.
So these 2 clowns at the Grey Manor are trying to shoot a Braithwaite that's running away. These families hate each other, have for generations, and they can't hit the broadside of a barn. So you have the chance to interact with characters around the world. You can either be friendly or you can antagonise them. So I usually go with how I'm feeling, and these two guys have just shot like 40 bullets at this guy running up the hill. Mm-hmm. So I antagonise them. And Arthur said, maybe if you guys take your head out of your rear ends, you'll be able to see where you're shooting. That's all it took for those two grey family members to turn their guns on me and start shooting at me as I rode my horse well past them into the grey manor to go and inform the boy that his letter was delivered. Now, that was fine. And as I was trying to interact with him, suddenly his icon locked because the two guys had run all the way from the other side of the estate to try to get me, so it locked me out of the mission temporarily. So I'm like, goodness me. I ride away down the other end of the field, and suddenly they're on horses chasing me. So I'm like, come on, guys. Leave me alone. I don't want to kill you, but I'm going to have to. So I took them down to a deserted little road, and we took care of business, let's just say. I hid the bodies in some bushes and then left the horses there and rode back to Beau Grey to inform him that, yes, the mission was a success. I delivered a letter and only 2 people died. It's pretty standard for the postal service in the Wild West, I'm sure. Now, what was even funnier was then I tried to trigger the next mission immediately from Beau Grey, and he said, all right, mount up and follow me. And then he just ran off into the field. So I'm like, why do I have to mount up if you're on foot? And he was running straight to where I killed the 2 family members. He was making a beeline for it. And I'm like, what is happening here?
You're so busted.
And no, he was just after his horse that they had stolen to chase me. And because his horse was supposed to be in the stable where he was, as soon as he got on the horse, he just sat there. And that was it.
You glitched out the mission.
Glitched out the mission by telling someone to pull their head out of their butt. So that was my experience in Red Dead Redemption 2. Some good times were had. Some low-stakes poker was played. But overall, I'm really enjoying this game.
Good. Even when you break it.
Even when I break it. And I couldn't ride away because Arthur Morgan was following Beau Grey on his horse. So we were both just sitting there like idiots.
He forgot how to get back home.
So I did what any law-abiding outlaw would do, and I shot Beau Grey, which made me fail the mission, and it would reload the checkpoint.
There you go.
See, I know how to work the system.
Oh, my goodness. That's pretty funny.
I told you it would be a monologue. What a story for the ages.
Indeed. Okay, one of the games that I have been playing quite a bit this week, Stardew Valley. The addiction has taken a hold once again.
Quite a bit?
Yes.
Is that an accurate?
I would say so. I think most of the times you've seen me in the gaming room, that's what I've been playing. For long lengths, it's weirdly been helping me readjust to normal hours. It's been, because it's so relaxing.
After your flight back from the United States of America, you've
Yes.
been out of time?
Yes, I have. I've been waking up at weird hours, so playing it after dinner and being able to force myself to kind of stay up later and get back to my normal hours, it's been really, really helpful. My Farmer Gem, I believe, is like nearly to the end of her 2nd year in Stardew Valley.
Yeah, now this is why I wanted to clarify that quite a bit may even be an underselling of how much Stardew Valley you've played. It took us about 8 weeks to get through an entire year in that game. I'm pretty sure it was spring when you returned into the land down under. And it's now
Winter.
Spring, summer, fall.
Autumn.
Okay, so you've basically done multiple weeks worth of gaming in Stardew Valley, condensed into like 1 week.
Yes. I have nearly all the animals that you can get, except rabbits. I have not added rabbits yet. But pigs, I've been farming lots of pigs because they dig up truffles, and then truffles, if you know anything about real-life truffles, are very expensive. but then you turn that into truffle oil and it gets even like more valuable. So I've been just making lots of money that way. Yes. And so when you see how much I get every day after I sell all my goods, you're like, how?
So your pigs are your cash cows. Is that what we're saying?
Ironically, the cows don't bring in as much money. I mean, they give milk, which I can then turn into cheese, but it's not worth it as much.
This is one of those games where not often do I see your progress in a game and go, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to catch this? But I saw you walk into a barn and you had like 50 treasure chests and all these kegs and cheese makers, and it was crazy. You're like a little industrial. You're going to strip that land bare by the time you're done at that farm.
I've been very strategic. Like, I've only been chopping down trees as I need them, so that way I always have enough wood to build my next building.
That's what all the corporations
say. And then
say.
things kind of grow back naturally over time. Like, new trees will just kind of sprout organically. So I haven't even cleared like half of the land. Half of it's still kind of forest. Yeah, so I've just been slowly chipping away at it. It's probably not going to be as pretty a layout as some of the ones you see online of people who do these gorgeous designs. They almost make patterns out of the huge land with the way that they've designed the pathways and the way that their farming crops and things are all laid out. Mine is kind of just, oh yeah, I've got just enough room to slam that there. But my character is officially married.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes, to Elliot, a.k.a. Fabio.
Oh, the windswept hair on the beach.
Yes, the poet.
Is it wrong for me to congratulate my wife on getting married to someone?
It's a video game character. It's not me. It's yes. So
cool.
It does no different as like with other video games where you've got romance stories. That's character romancing. It's even though I'm the one contrling them.
The explanation didn't need to be that long. The lady doth protest too much.
He's been very sweet. He will occasionally make coffee in the morning, or he'll do chores so that I don't have to do as much. Although it's kind of funny when he's like, oh yeah, I fed all the animals today, and I'm like, all of my animals are like get automatically fed, so you don't have to do that. So that's kind of like a cheap out trying to say that you did this. Look, praise me.
So he makes your coffee and does the dishes and stuff? Does the housework?
Well, yes.
Sounds like a dream.
He does maintain some of that kind of stuff. He added a library to the house, which I'm very happy with, because some of the other options that you have, I wouldn't have been as keen with that getting added to my house. So having a nice giant library, I'm like, yes, I am accepting this. Well,
it is a standard part of courting a suitor that they just extend your house by a full room when they move in. It's pretty standard.
Yeah, exactly. It just magically happened too. It didn't even take any time. It was just there.
The question is, where can I get a spouse that makes me coffee and does the chores?
Oh, you in trouble. The question is, do you want someone who doesn't drink coffee making you coffee, because they might not know if it's any good or not?
Yeah, I'll make my own coffee. If you want a job done right, do it yourself.
Yep. Okay, so changing the subject, what was the other game on your list?
Well, the other game I've been playing on my breaks here and there on the 3DS, even though it is not even a 2DS, it's just a DS cartridge, Chrono Trigger. A game I started last week, but I was still very early and hadn't really given it enough to give a proper verdict on how it's settling in my gaming hands. And I got to tell you, sometimes you will play a game that makes you remember just how much you love a genre. And when you play as many different genres as I do, sometimes I'll play a horror game that I haven't played in 6 months and I'll go, oh yeah, I really love horror games. This is what I'm experiencing right now with JRPGs and playing Chrono Trigger. It is fantastic. It feels like an old school Final Fantasy game. No surprise there, based off the developers. But the plot is pretty darn awesome because you have a time-traveling mechanic. You can go to the same world map in different eras. And I'm not talking 20 years in the future. I'm talking thousands, or in some cases, millions of years, if you want to go caveman. But it's kind of cool. There's been a big cataclysmic event that's going to happen in the future. Some evil wizard's going to summon a great creature and the world will be pretty much dead. There'll be a few straggling survivors, but it's no way for humanity to live. And so you have the ability, thanks to a botched teleportation invention by one of your friends, you can time travel. So why not try and stop that from happening and save millions of lives?
Because when you mess with things, then other things happen that are bad. That, aka the lesson you learn in every single thing about time travel ever.
We're going to find out in the future, no doubt, that we're actually the monster. I don't think that's true, because one very cool thing, something you can do in a game like Majora's Mask, The Legend of Zelda, is that you can actually time travel to the point where the world is going to end and witness it with your own eyes.
For some reason that reminds me of Futurama. They get stuck in the time machine and they keep going too fast.
Yeah. Well, thankfully this one's a bit more well controlled. I've put about close to 10 hours into this game. The cast are good. I have not needed to use a guide at all because everything has been clear cut as far as my next objective. Even though I have like 8 different time zones I can travel to at the moment, I don't feel lost. That's something I thought would be a problem. It's something that, unless you're being held by the hand, a game like Final Fantasy 13-2, which deals in a lot of different time zones, that will highlight where the next main mission point is. Go to this one if you want to do the main mission, the rest is all optional. This doesn't have that, but I've been paying enough attention that I have not had a head-scratching moment. One thing I really enjoy about the Chrono Trigger is its combat. Unlike many JRPGs of that era, you don't just trigger a random encounter and suddenly the screen goes fuzzy and then you're in the solid side-on sort of 2D turn-based combat. The enemies are on the map. You can avoid them if you're talented enough. Some are forced encounters, but the combat takes place exactly where you are in the environment you're in. So that's kind of cool. You can combine certain characters' abilities into a super-powered one. Someone who spins around with their sword and you get a robot who shoots a laser. Well, those two powers combine, you can spin around shooting a laser. Wonderful. Just little things like that. I really enjoy the variety of characters so far. I'll give a more detailed report when I get further into the plot, but so far, we're on track for a 5-star game.
Nice. Now, you may not know that I have actually been playing other stuff other than just Stardew Valley.
You've been seeing other games?
I have. On my Vita, I've actually been playing Code Realize, Future Blessings. And
one of the visual novels that you purchased on your United States trip?
And I started over in America and continued. And I believed, I had thought that I had finished my first story arc, my first character run. And I had credits and everything. And then it kept going. I'm like, what is with games doing this to me lately?
You can't seem to beat a game these days.
They keep lying to me. Don't give me credits unless it's done. So I got a little annoyed. I mean, I'm always happy to have more game, but my word, I'm like, yeah, I did one. I can check that. Oh no. It's still going.
Good thing this isn't a 4 in Feb game,
I know.
because that would be like the ultimate false finish.
I believe I actually had a false finish with my 4 in So many games are doing that now. I'm like, what is with this? It's like the whole Marvel movie thing where just because there's credits doesn't mean it's over.
Thankfully, there's not another 5 hours of movie after a Marvel movie.
Yeah, oh my goodness. So, yeah, that I left it at that though. I'm like, no, saving. Need a break. So
Has it stacked up to the previous entry in that series?
It's been very simplistic thus far. That said, maybe all the meat is after the credits. I don't know. I still feel like I'm quite young in the game. It's at this point in time, it feels more like fan service. Everything that I've experienced thus far, it doesn't feel like there's been much weight in anything. So I don't know. I'll get to more of that, I guess, when we get to Gaming Girls at the end of this episode. But yeah, Been very, I guess, Code Realized light.
Ooh. Well, as long as you still get some enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, I enjoy the fan service aspects in the sense of, like, all the in-jokes and then bringing back characters to see them in funny interactions. Like, that does not bother me in the slightest.
It sounds like it would be a fan service style sequel, but
Yeah.
that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, but as far as having the intrigue and complexity as the first game, it hasn't even come anywhere near that yet. So maybe that's what's after the credits. I don't know.
Well, we'll see.
We shall.
My only other game to report, myself and my good buddy the Falcon have completed Silent Hill 2 in our quest to beat the entire Silent Hill series.
Well done.
We had some issues actually getting off the ground with this one. We mentioned in an earlier podcast that the Xbox 360 can play Silent Hill 2 on the Xbox, but not the PAL version, which what we have. So that didn't work. We invested in the HD collection, a game that somehow makes the games from the previous generation worse. It's not how remasters should work. But Silent Hill 2 as a game, I still greatly enjoyed. Enjoyed might be a strong word considering the sad and traumatic experiences you go through in that game. I kind of enjoyed playing Silent Hill 2, a game about a man who has lost his wife. I enjoyed it more as a teenager and not as a married man. I'll put that right out there to begin with. But as far as the maze-like areas and trying to figure out, all right, where are we going to go? These doors are all locked. We've only got these 3 doors left to try, and then we're out of ideas. Oh, good, one's open. Oh, we've got a key item. Okay, we know where this goes. That's why I've always liked video games that are like escape rooms. How you're locked out of all options until one little thing opens up, and then you start steamrolling through the whole thing.
Yep.
Good stuff. We also did all the combat on hard difficulty, continuing the trend. But Silent Hill 2 starts the trend in the series where you can choose separate combat and puzzle difficulties. We've tried to play Silent Hill games on hard puzzle difficulties in the past. It doesn't go well. It's extremely difficult. Far too large of a gap between normal and hard on that one. So we went hard combat, normal puzzle, didn't need any guides. It was all memories, and sometimes our memories were wrong, but it was all memories. Now, an interesting thing about the HD collection, apart from the fact that the water looks like hot garbage compared to the original PS2 era game, the fog they couldn't get right, and it isn't foggy enough so you can see the edges of roads and buildings that were never supposed to be seen.
They should just borrow some of the fog we have here in Melbourne at the moment.
Well, that's why I think we stole it all. Maybe that's what happened. And it has been interesting playing Silent Hill 2 with achievements, however. Something that weren't around when we originally played Silent Hill 2. It was a generation too early. So, do I have it in me to play through this game 8 times? No. But it's nice to know that if I ever do want to play Silent Hill 2 again, I can get a few more achievies for different endings and different play styles. Cool beans.
Now, the HD Silent Hill collection got redubbed, didn't it?
Yes, there have been some games that have required full redubs in the past when they have made a newer version. Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear Solid The Twin Snakes. That was simply because when they recorded the original audio, it was so low quality, they didn't notice there was trains and other noises in the background that completely ruined the immersion.
Yeah. There's a big difference between MP3 and WAV formats, let me tell you.
Now, with Silent Hill 2, we're talking a little bit about licensing laws and things like that in the body of this episode, but this is not how it works. One of the actors of Silent Hill 2, who plays the main character, James Sunderland, refused to let Konami use his voice in a HD collection, a remaster, a re-release, unless they paid him more. That's not how that works in this scenario.
Can be. You know, if you've... I guess a lot of people don't know, though, when you get hired for voice work, unless they pay you a buyout, like a one giant lump sum and they get to use it forever... your voice is only on loan. It's not a permanent thing. It's a
just like Ariel out of The Little Mermaid.
Nothing quite so drastic in the
good.
fine print.
No witchcraft involved.
That I know of. But so when I do voiceover work, a lot of the time it's I'll do a 1-year license is pretty standard for most jobs. But not everyone knows that. So a lot of people, especially I guess smaller businesses, when they're paying for your work, assume that once they've paid for it, that that's forever. You really have to spell it out for some people. But for most ads that I do for TV, it's a 1-year license unless they say, oh, we want this for 2 years because this is going to be running for this campaign for a certain amount of time. Or if for really big things, it will be a buyout, and then I get paid lots more.
Well, video games don't intend to be on sale for 1 year only and then stricken from existence.
You would assume it would be a buyout, but that's not always the case.
Yeah, well...
It depends on what the contract says.
Konami were having so many issues with this legal knot that Guy Chihi, whatever his name was trying to tie them up in, that they ended up just deciding, screw it, we'll just recast and just do another dub.
If it's cheaper.
Well, the thing is, when the game released, it had both dubs in it anyway, so I guess they came to an agreement of some sort.
Either that or he doesn't know.
Nobody tell him. Now, what made me a bit sad was my buddy, the Falcon, and myself decided to try the new voices for a laugh. They looked terrible on the trailers we'd seen, so why not have a few extra laughs as we do, as we go through these games, and try some different voices. We did not like the experience, and thankfully we could change it halfway through by going back to the menu and loading our game and picking original voices again. It's kind of weird when you know the beats of the dialogue so well that any other delivery sounds off.
Yeah, even if it's a good actor. I think that's kind of similar to sometimes the live-action remakes we've seen of Disney movies, is you're so familiar with the original that even if the live-action's not bad, you go, well, it's still not as good as the original. I love the way that the original was sung, or like with classic songs. I think of like Beauty and the Beast and the Be Our Guest song, and they kind of mixed it up a little bit, and I get why they did that, but I love the classic, and so that kind of irritated me a little, you know, even though, I mean, I love Ewan McGregor, he's fantastic, did a great job as Lumiere, still not as good as the original though, for me.
Yeah.
But that's also, it's not just saying that the original is good, but it's also nostalgia talking there, and I have a personal link to that. So that makes it harder to win over older audiences.
Of course. Now, this isn't a game that's like a 60-hour RPG where you've got characters you bond with over these, you know, gigantic story arcs and things. The dialogue in Silent Hill 2 is actually quite minimal, and it still feels so wrong. And that's what's strange. I'm sure you couldn't imagine playing the Mass Effect trilogy with a completely different voice cast.
Depends on the character.
You want someone else voicing Garrus?
No.
You
no
want
one
someone else voicing Femshep?
No.
Exactly.
I'm not talking about the main cast. There's just some side characters that I'm like,
all the
can we recast Diana Ellis, please? But yeah, no, to be fair, no, they've did a fantastic job with casting, but there are certain other games where voice casting is very weak and could benefit from a recast, honestly. I mean, that sounds a little harsh. But...
Well, the actor who replaced James Sunderland's voice in Silent Hill 2 said that even when you hear it like a live version of a song played by the original artists, it's like, oh, that music note didn't hit the same high it usually does. This sounds a bit weird.
Or they'll sing it differently because they get sick of singing the same song every night as they tour.
That's a possibility too. So there's always going to be differences between different performances, even if it's the same line of dialogue.
Yeah.
Now, my good buddy the Falcon was complaining, saying, why couldn't they get good voice actors? The voice actor I just quoted was Troy Baker. Laura Bailey, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, Liam O'Brien. Good
Amazing
voice actors, if not among the best. And I absolutely hated their delivery of pretty much everything that was uttered.
Another thing to be aware of too is it's not necessarily always up to the voice actor. I think we touched on this when we were talking about Titus's laugh. Sometimes the actor will want to do it another way, but they're told, no, this is the direction we want you to do it this way. And it may feel weird or unnatural, but that's, you know, what they've been told, and they're paid to do as they're told, basically, to play the role how the director wants.
No, I agree completely. I agree completely because the direction and the delivery of the lines is what my biggest issue is, not just a different voice.
Yeah.
But like James, for example, at his core, he is a coward more than what Troy Baker's voice makes him appear as. So those sort of things are different. And, you know, as you go through the story, you meet characters who represent like different aspects of the struggle that Silent Hill has drawn them in. One represents guilt, one represents like lost innocence, things like that. And their voices just don't match up to the original performances, I find, which is sad because I love those voice actors so much. And secondly, I will defend Titus's laugh to the grave. That is exactly how it should sound because it makes sense in the plot point being revealed there.
Exactly, but so many people just think it's bad acting. And we've touched on that before, so I'm not going to go into that again. But speaking of things, I mean, it's not video game, but it's something that's very recent and fresh in my mind. The Fruits Basket anime got redone recently, but they got a lot of the original cast back to reprise their roles. But it still sounds so different. I mean, the writing is a little different too. It's modernized a bit along with the animation itself. But it's been, 15 years since these cast members did those roles, so they've aged, and so their voices themselves sound different. The way they approach their characters has changed. They've matured in the way that they approach acting, and you can hear that. It's a tangible difference, and so I think for some fans, it might sound weird, and they might go, oh, it's not as good as the original. It doesn't sound the same because they've changed, and that's something you can't really control.
It's like any TV show that goes for like 8 seasons and you've watched it all and you go back and start again and they all sound
so
like they're on
weird.
helium.
I know, right? It's hilarious. It's tricky. But yeah, the licensing issue is a big thing that comes into play, and that's why we're going to be touching on that very, very soon with our main topic here on episode 62 of the Gaming Lovers podcast.
Share the love. Follow us on Twitter at BrendoGem. That's BrendoJem.
Have you seen like the best bargain on the Xbox store at the moment?
I do love a good bargain. What do you have?
So you can get Minecraft Story Mode, each episode, for $100 each.
What?
Yeah.
$100 for an episode of an episodic...
Yep, there's just 13 episodes, so total bargain.
It's a strange turn of events, but after the poor demise of Telltale Games in the past 12 months, was it? And now we have the effects of that spreading out throughout the gaming landscape. Minecraft Story Mode, an interactive narrative using the beloved Minecraft world. Episodic, 2.5 hours each, roughly. This is how these things have worked for so many years. And what has happened to the price of them on the Xbox 360 store? It's gone through the roof.
It is a weird system that they have because the way that Xbox has set up their store is that if anyone does own something from the digital store, they can't delist it. So their way of stopping people or discouraging them, I guess, from buying this game is by hiking up the price exponentially.
There will be some idiot on Reddit who has already bought the entire Minecraft Story Mode saga for the ridiculous inflated price for his 15 seconds of fame.
Oh, good grief. So, yeah, it is a weird pickle. So the licensing expires and they don't have the rights to it anymore. It's such a strange world we live in where things like that can kind of just disappear.
Yeah, so many ways of entertainment and media, you don't expect it to just vanish and not be available anymore. Some of them might go out of distribution and become rarer to find a copy of.
Yeah.
But the way that licensing works, particularly with video games, is that, and even more scarily because we're in such a digital age now, where you don't own the game, you just have the rights to play it.
Yes,
if they
you're renting
if they remove the ability for you to play it, it's gone.
Even on physical games that you may own, for example, Mass Effect 3 had, multiplayer as an optional side thing, but they also had an app that they released to help you contribute to your game, and you can't get the best galactic readiness unless you play that app or play multiplayer. And when they deleted that app, it removed that option for you. It's basically not a complete game anymore because they got rid of it because it was an expense that, barely anyone was using it, so they remove it. And it's this vicious cycle that, impacts whether a game feels complete or not.
Yeah, some of it is due to actually being given permission to create a game with a already existing IP.
Yeah.
From whether it be Batman or, Marvel characters.
Disney
I keep going
characters.
with superheroes. Help me here. Help me.
Even brands. One that we mentioned a while back was Crazy Taxi and KFC.
Yep.
That had to get modified, I guess, basically to remove all the imaging and the branding, so that way when it was sold in a digital format as an old school classic, they had to change several things, and I believe some of the soundtrack had to be altered too.
It just didn't feel right. I had Crazy Taxi on the Dreamcast. It had KFC. It had The Offspring on the soundtrack. I play it now, expecting it to start with, yeah, 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 yeah. And no, it's a different song. What is this? This is not my Crazy Taxi. How offensive.
The danger of using established products or music, because, again, the license only lasts for so long unless they do a buyout, which can be incredibly expensive, especially with big name brands and bands and things like that. So it's much smarter for any, young budding developers out there, make everything yourself. That way you own everything. Even using royalty-free music, people think that means, hey, free music. Not the case. You still need to pay for the license to use that music. It just means that you're not paying royalties for every time it plays. So, for example, in the radio world, every time you hear your favorite song on the radio station has to pay the royalty every time that song spins, every time it's played. And then that accumulates, and then the royalties get sent off to whoever Lucky Duck gets paid that. Royalty-free music means that they've paid for the license to use that, but then that's the only thing that they've paid for that set time to use that royalty-free music, but they don't have to pay the extra added cost every time that music plays then on the station. So many people, and I think a lot of YouTubers are probably going to get themselves in trouble because they think, oh, this means free music. For me, it's royalty-free. It's not free music. It's just royalty-free music. Licensing is still a big thing and can get you in a lot of trouble and get you dragged off to court.
There have been multiple games that have had to be pulled from digital stores and had their soundtracks altered, like Crazy Taxi that we just said. Alan Wake is another one that used Roy Orbison.
My dad loves Roy Orbison.
So Alan Wake, difficult to get a hold of, especially a year or two ago. I got a code for it when I bought Quantum Break. It's installed on my Xbox One. I'm not deleting it just in case. Myself and the Falcon just tried to play it, didn't enjoy it. I'm still not deleting it in case I can't get it back. Just like PT.
Exactly. The amount of things that can get just taken away, it kind of is frightening from like a historian kind of point of view. All these games that, if people get them digitally or only were ever released digitally, are going to vanish possibly from existence, and then it's almost like they never were a game if, they, for licensing reasons or for just not being able to keep the servers alive. How are you supposed to preserve that? So all these things that are part of our cultural history could just vanish in a blink of an eye.
Yeah. I'll never fully throw my weight and support behind video game piracy. I have never modified any of my consoles. I have tried to avoid all that sort of thing. I like to support the industry that I'm invested in and that I enjoy. I want them to have their fair money for the products that they have made.
Yeah.
That's fine. But having said that, if there's no other way to get a copy of a game that I'm interested in playing and it's out of distribution, it's not available anywhere else, I might consider it. Because that way, it's the only way you can really preserve the media.
Yeah. You think of even developers not preserving their own games. You'd think that they would keep, on external hard drives somewhere, copies of everything that they've made, kept them back up and going, just in case one day we want to take the base code and then give it a new fresh coat of paint and re-release it. Say with Final Fantasy VIII.
Hey, Robert! Robert, where do we leave this Final Fantasy VIII source code?
Jen, where's our ad?
Not happy, Robert! These things, as absurd as they sound, can happen. Game developers lose part of or all of the game they've created many years ago, and then when they want to cash in on a remake or a remaster, oops, where is it?
Which USB did I pop that on again?
Oh, don't get me started with USBs. I put things onto USBs. I don't think I've ever taken anything off a USB because I just lose them.
I have a box of them that I keep next to my desk with all the different files and stuff like that. I feel like I need to get a label maker though, because I'm not sure. I'm like trying like 20 different USBs trying to find the one video file that I need for work. But yeah, it's such a conundrum.
What's tricky about this is that it's very much at the owner of the intellectual property. It's their discretion if they renew licenses or not, and for what sort of time frame. When Deadpool was nothing more than just a minor character in the Marvel Universe, Activision wanted to make a Deadpool game with Nolan North cracking wise, and they're like, yep, sure, make it. Sounds good. We'll make some money off that. And then they went, no, actually, we're going to make a movie out of this. So even though the license has expired for this, we'll bring it back for about 6 months. That seems about right. Hype up the movie, and then now it's just dead in the water again. So it's completely at their discretion as to when you can get a game.
It's so frustrating. Disney has very strict licensing laws. If you're a big fan of Disney, you'll know that they have what's called the Vault, and certain movies will be available to buy on like Blu-ray and DVD at certain times of the year, and then they'll disappear from shelves again. And that's because Disney wants to kind of can create this illusion, much like the diamond market, I guess, of that, it's only out for a short time and you better get it while you can mentality. And so they restrict the licensing of when things can be on streaming services at certain times, and then it'll disappear again. So it makes it look more valuable than it is. And they have such a tight rein on that. And you think Disney owns pretty much everything these days. So that spreads out to so much stuff, and that impacts a lot of video games as well. And that mentality of keeping things on the market for a short burst of time works for the short term in creating quick dollars coming in. But I think long term and longevity for games can really hurt the industry.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe I've just got superheroes on the brain today, but Marvel has had a lot of experience with this, even in the movie world, when, not Warner Brothers movie world, that's on the Gold Coast, that's a different little theme park, but even with like the X-Men franchise, how many people have had their hands in that pocket trying to make it so it's exclusive to this, exclusive to that, and now it's sort of separate from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but you've got some characters that cross over, and it gets a bit confusing and weird. They also have a lot of history of issues as far as licensing video games. There's a new game coming out, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 on the Nintendo Switch. But the previous games, if you'd like to play them, too bad. They're off digital stores because of licensing issues.
Yep.
Again, with games that feature Marvel characters like Marvel vs. Capcom. You want to beat up Jill Valentine with Iron Man? Well, you could. But unfortunately, those are the sort of games that very often go missing off digital stores.
Yes.
So if you get a physical copy, I'm telling you, preserving the media is important. Buy physical copies. That's what I do. They don't, not just because they look nice on my shelf.
Well, they're good for the collector as well, but it's an interesting thing with games like Capcom or it's like Smash Bros. You might wonder why the characters that you love from certain video games sound weirder in those games, is because oftentimes they're not the same voice actors.
I didn't even think of Smash Brothers. I reckon you move us forward 10 years, you will not be able to buy a Smash Brothers Ultimate digitally because of the amount of strange licensing agreements that work with that game. Sure, it seems so absurd that you have Sonic the Hedgehog, Solid Snake, Cloud Strife, Joker from Persona, Banjo-Kazooie, all these different characters in the same game. This is wonderful for now.
You have the digital copy. It makes me wonder if you'd be able to play with the base characters that are built into the game if you bought a physical copy. But because we got Joker as DLC, maybe he will just disappear from the game and it will be broken, I guess, if that ever gets removed. Hard to say whether we'll care so much because games like that have modern iterations every couple of years. We might not want to replay the old ones as much, but that said, you and I, we love having our retro game nights and bringing out like the Sega Master System or the Nintendo 64 out and replaying it in all its old
pixelated
glory. So it's an interesting thing. I think having music changed because the licenses, like in GTA, where they might have licensed out pop songs and things like that, and having to change that or remove them and replace it with something else isn't as big a deal as some of the other stuff. But it can have very far-reaching consequences. Going back to voices, because that's kind of my field.
That's fine.
The voice of Sonic has changed so much over the years because of licensing issues. And most recently with Roger Craig Smith, the only reason he got cast as Sonic was because the previous voice actor refused to sign up basically and lend his voice to Sonic again because of the new contract that they were drawing up. He felt that it was completely unfair, and unless that they were going to meet the union standards that he was fighting back with, he wasn't going to do the job, and so he got recast. It's kind of a messy industry, really, in that sense. You know, sometimes it's not just who's the best voice, but it's very political. It can get messy trying to fight for fair pay and fair conditions and things like that. That's cost a lot of voice actors good work, and work that they're kind of considered iconic for, they can get replaced with someone that's cheaper.
Yeah, it's not always just like you said, just the cheaper option. But there are some companies that own game properties, but they're tied up in like a three-way ownership between a publisher, a developer, and the creator's genius mind. And none of them even know what percentage of what is owned by who, so it's too much of a hassle. Just let it rot for all we care. And another factor to consider in this digital age is that every time you turn on your console, something's being patched, right? And we've got remasters and remakes. Everything's running on the newest hardware. For all that to happen, you need permission from the owner of the IP to even patch the game that you got paid to create. Developers of video games can't even maintain their own creations without permission from the IP owner.
Absolutely.
That's crazy to think about. Surely if you build a car, you should have the rights to fix that car and to keep it working when it breaks without permission from Ford or Toyota.
Yeah.
I'm not a car man. I'm not a music man, I'm not a car man.
This is where the flaws come in with those contracts and these licenses, is they're so short-term a lot of the time. And people don't think big picture or long-term. They want to get the game out, and so they do it kind of in short bursts. And I think so many developers and studios are kind of a little negative. They don't expect their games to have necessarily longevity, or may not expect to have a cult following that wants the game to last for years and years. And so they kind of go with a short-term option, and then they'll deal with the new issues when they have to, if they have to. But if the game doesn't take off and it ends up being a bomb, then, oh, well, if it disappears, who cares? Yeah,
on the more money-hungry side of things, we've always had to deal with console exclusives, but now we're dealing with PC store exclusives as well, because Steam, for the longest time, was the be-all and end-all of online digital purchases for your computer games. But now, recently, the Epic Store has been getting some less than popular feedback. The creators of Fortnite have been wringing their hands in money, and so they have been locking down so many different games that will now be leaving Steam and moving to the Epic Store, for example. And if all your friends are playing on Steam and you've showed up to the party late and you can't buy it on Steam, you want to be part of your crew on Steam. It might be more complex than that little niggle, but it's a factor.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't want to sign up for a whole different thing to buy a game that you knew used to be available on something. Thankfully, even on Steam itself, there has been a wonderful curated list. People can put together basically like playlists for video games. If you like horror games, these are the ones you must play. And people have also made a curated list of games that are in threat of removal. Now, whether that's simply a chumpy early access game that the developer said, yeah, we're not actually going to finish making this game, so it will be gone before you know it. From that all the way through to things like we're talking about with licenses expiring, new Game of the Year editions probably superseding older versions that might have actually ran better. We've seen that in the past. Hey, Silent Hill HD Collection, I'm looking at you. There's so many different things. So having somebody who's actually taken the time to keep their eye on this sort of thing, and they post different alert levels. So if something's red alert, it's been confirmed it will be leaving digital stores. Get it now. As if I didn't have enough bargains to hunt as it is. I'm going to be grabbing games in fear of they're going to be not buyable again.
That's one thing that really does scare me just about the digital age that we live in, with so many games relying on being part of a subscription-based thing, is that they can just disappear so easily, or you can be cut off from them if they think that not enough people are playing. So I look at the games like World of Warcraft and I wonder, how do you archive something like that too? What if you wanted to play it like years later and that disappears?
Well, it's been going for like 16 years.
I know it has been, and I feel like it's one of those things that maybe will never go away, but you don't know. You just don't. Something else could come out and completely eclipse it, and it could just fizzle.
And that's it. You could watch To Kill a Mockingbird 150 years in the future.
Exactly.
You may not be able to play World of Warcraft 150 years in the future.
I mean, you could probably watch YouTubers play World of Warcraft, in archived footage from that.
Hello, this is 2170. We're talking about BrainTube at this point.
One historian made an interesting point in one of the articles I was reading, how it sometimes could be more important to have footage of people playing the game and keeping that preserved as far as our cultural history rather than preserving the game itself. Much like preserving, say, Mozart's piano isn't as important as preserving his work, or how amazing it would be to see footage of him actually playing that piano. What would be more valuable? But I believe we would only have access to said piano and his works. We didn't have the technology to film him play. But it's an interesting point to make, that sometimes art, when we want to look back at it throughout history, we care more about the process of seeing it made, for example, like those behind-the-scenes things you get to see of video games getting made, or like the motion capture being done. That's kind of fascinating, and it helps you see the work that went into it and also the cultural significance of that in its time. Whereas the game itself might not be as significant as far as in the history. It's a weird thing to think about. I'm not sure if I completely agree with the point. Like, I can see that point of being able to see other people play it would be important as far as archiving and documenting this point in time in history.
But the problem is, video games by their very nature are an interactive media.
Exactly.
To experience them, you have to play them.
Exactly, and it's not the same. I mean, it's fun to watch other people play for sure, but it's so not the same as playing it yourself. It never is.
If this was a YouTuber filming Mozart playing, he'd probably be giving his own comments during the performance
Talking
as well,
all over that masterpiece.
ruining the plot points of the finer symphony that's being given out. So no, I wouldn't want that at all. It's an interesting little discussion point.
Absolutely.
Something for us to be aware of and maybe even a little fearful of as we move further and further into the digital hole.
But something that makes me, I think, more appreciative of modders who are doing their best to try to preserve things, and those who are creating websites to kind of save the smaller indie games that maybe don't even make a blip on our radar, but like file things away so that they don't just disappear into the abyss.
Yeah, when PT, which was the playable trailer for Silent Hills, which was scrapped, when that whole project went under and they said, yeah, we're not actually going to make this, PT itself was pulled from the digital stores, and if you didn't have it installed on your hardware, on your PS4, it's gone forever and you can never get it. But PC gamers have made a pixel-perfect replication of it so it can be experienced.
Yep.
So maybe we'll be playing a Sonic the Hedgehog game in the future made by me.
You never know. Start learning how to code.
That was very demanding of you. I'm not one of your Stardew Valley pigs. I'm not your cash cow.
Oh, because you could make so much money off of a Sonic game. Sorry. You wouldn't have the license to it anyway.
No, I wouldn't. It'd be pulled from
Yep, you would
production.
You'd get in big trouble. Cease and desist. So that is a bit of an obstacle, though, to try to preserve things and then not being allowed to preserve things.
Nintendo in particular. If you try to make a remake of anything Nintendo, you will be shut down instantly.
So much trouble. See, this is like an issue. I can't think of like a perfect solution to it. I don't know. Maybe you can think of a way that we can kind of preserve these games, or a way that we could change the way we address licensing, maybe from a legal standpoint, so that games can last longer and not disappear from stores and digital stores just so suddenly.
Yeah. Lawyers, get to it.
Yes.
We require this to be altered.
We need your help. Do some good for the gaming community.
Phoenix! Where are you, son?
We'll be right back with more gaming goals after this.
You're listening to the Gaming Lovers Podcast. Want to join the conversation? Visit thegaminglovers.com. Record your comment or question by clicking on the button on the right-hand side, and you could be featured in the next podcast.
So what games are you going to play this week before they disappear forever?
Oh, I don't have enough time to play games comfortably, let alone under pressure.
Under pressure. Oh no, I can't sing that. Licensing issues. Ha! Copyright. See, it affects everything. It really does.
That's why we just sing a Gaming Goals introduction each week and we don't actually record one, because we'd probably lose the rights to our own music the way this world's going.
Very true. I know license sound like they're bad guys, but they're really not. They do protect a lot of artists and creators. They're there for a reason. I mean, they protect my work, so if someone tries to pay me peanuts and then use it forever, then I can be like, oi.
Honey, the main body of the podcast is leaking into Gaming Goals. I've got to push this back out.
Sorry.
I'm going to set a goal.
Yeah?
I'm going to set an actual gaming goal.
Ooh.
I intend on being at the end of the next big story chapter chunk with the Greys and the Braithwaites in Red Dead Redemption 2 by next week's podcast.
Awesome.
I want to see. I am enjoying this chapter of the game. I'm enjoying the inter-family arguments, and they just look. Beau Gray just wants to be free. He doesn't want to marry his cousin because it's getting weird.
But I mean, that's how it was done for many millennia, really.
And they seem like a nice couple, and I'll do all I can with my Wild West powers to make them united. Not him and the cousin. Him and the. Oh gosh, this got worse and worse when I try to fix it.
All right, how does that foot in your mouth taste?
Dusty.
I think I could easily start my official 3rd year in Stardew Valley. So I don't know what that will bring, but...
Famine.
Oh goodness, hopefully not.
Locust plague.
Don't wish that upon my poor farmer.
This is just becoming biblical.
Oh my word. And yeah, let's see if I can get a little bit further with Code Realize and get some real end credits and not fake end credits. The Trixie game. Trixie.
Well, they got you.
They really did. They suckered me in so good.
And I do have earlier finishes this week, which frees up my evenings for gaming. So potentially, myself and the good buddy the Falcon may start our journey into Silent Hill 3. One that I have much more experience than he does. So
You're trying to release even more fog into the world.
Yes, I am.
Is it creepy having that much fog in real life at the same time as you're playing Silent Hill?
Yeah, it's things are getting a bit strange. You get Facebook memories. 8 years ago, we were playing Silent Hill 2. And then we're playing Silent Hill 2 again, and the fog is like the worst I've ever seen. You know what is scary? Trying to drive trains through a fog. That is not comfortable. It was a stressful night last night at work, and I need video games. It's time to finish the podcast. I need video games.
Maybe you should be playing Stardew Valley and have something relaxing.
Maybe. But
Yeah.
the world needs saving, honey. There's no time. I was going to say there's no time to waste in Chrono Trigger as well, but if there's time travel, then I guess you can waste a little bit of time and then just travel back. So that didn't work at all. Time travel's confusing, even when you're making sentences about it.
With that, that's us wrapped for another week. Hope you have a good one, and hopefully wherever you are in the world, it's a lot warmer than it is in Melbourne.
And make sure you like, subscribe, and review this podcast. Make sure you download every episode you can before the license expires and just vanishes forever.
You never know.
Wait, did that mean we vanish?
Oh no, I don't feel so good. Bye, Nara.
Chowski.
Thanks for listening to the Gaming Lovers Podcast. For more episodes or to watch some live stream gaming, visit thegaminglovers.com.